An incredibly sexy storm has raged around my house for the last few days. Blustery wind whistling through the letterbox, gusts rattling the door knocker, rumbling clouds, and rain of biblical proportions. It's really very atmospheric. This morning, I watched the rain trickle down my window pane as I smoked a pipe. Filled me with a sense of nostalgia, transporting me back to an half-remembered time decades ago. The 7-year-old me taking on an uninspiring journey to an uninspiring place. Blackpool. The nostalgia-inducing raindrops running down the misty window and the cloud of tobacco smoke surrounding me combined to take me back to that year's trip to see the lights, an annual event that I had to endure for a good portion of my childhood. My dad knew I hated it and I knew he hated it too, but when I begged not to be made to go, he pointed out that my mother and sister enjoyed it, so it'd be unfair not to go. He asked me why I didn't want to, and I said I didn't know. I really didn't know. I just knew that I didn't really want to go. Apparently though, I don't know, isn't a good enough reason, so I still had to go. Can we have some rock this year, Dad? Of course we can, sunshine. I'll put some bleeding trousers on. So sat in the back of my father's Renault 12 TL. I spent the next hour and a half feeling nauseated as my parents chain smoked their way through the traffic jam, to then spend a further hour sat in a queue looking at some epoxy lights. So my sister and I, seated in the back, the radio was nothing more but a tinny hiss of white noise that made conversation impossible. Not that she was capable of much conversation at that age, but it would have been nice. Then at some point, my mother glanced over her shoulder and caught me yawning. Just like my father and myself, my mother hated the trip. By the time we reached the Golden Mile, my parents' cigarette packets were exhausted, which did offer me asthmatic lungs some brief respite. But the sudden nicotine withdrawal meant my mum's temper was near its limits, and having mistaken the tiredness of a small boy's yawn for boredom or disdain, in fact it was more likely to be both, she exploded in rage, loudly proclaiming that she didn't know why she bothered bringing us. A sentiment shared by her husband and at least one of her offspring. And she demanded my father turn the car around and cut short the evening. And don't think we're stopping for any rock either. Unfortunately, her rage hadn't broken the surface until we was already stuck in the procession of cars crawling along the windy prom. Their passengers were oohing and ahhing and eating candy floss. And we had to endure another 40 minutes or so of silence interspersed with the occasional loud reassertion of an earlier point, before we found a place to take a right turn and head back home. I put my forehead against the glass, settled into the corner and watched the raindrops trickle as my sister nervously clawed at the flesh on my left forearm, drawing blood and leaving tracks that should probably have raised a few spurious suspicions regarding my well-being, but didn't. And steadfastly, I refused to join in with the game of I Spy that my dad later suggested, just when she was dozing off and slacking in her grip. The raindrops were catching the orange light cast by the ordinary non-garish street lamps that lit our route home and pissed about with it. creating amber lenses through which brief images of a distorted world that had never existed and that could never be seen again in quite the same way as I was able to see it, were visible. Twisted reality, captured briefly within the walls of his shimmering transient bubble. The rain was far more entertaining than a few shining clowns' faces and a neon representation of a tube of Smarties. Quite possibly, that was the beginning of my appreciation of the little things. A way of escaping the world around when the world around was passing through one of those periods when it's just not worth not escaping. Those boring, pointless periods that come between the interesting portions. You can always find something to stare at and lose yourself in, even if it means giving your eyes a rub so you can watch the sparkles dance. Many years later, and a parent myself, my mother suggested we take the kids to see the lights. I've no idea why on earth I'd do such a thing, but I agreed. I could remember that I didn't like going, but I couldn't remember why. Just that it hadn't made me happy. The lights was a different type of shit to the lights of my youth, but they were at least equally shit. There was a lot more of them, but basically, by then, there was just a series of advertising screens like those you see in a petrol station. The boys politely smiled and nodded whenever the grandmother said, "Ooh, look at that one." And both of them toyed longingly with the Nintendos they weren't allowed to turn on. And we stopped and bought some rock, and it was raining. There was no arguments on that trip. The car had speakers in the back so the kids could hear the music too. And of course there was no cigarette smoke. As we began the journey home, I glanced over my shoulder and saw my youngest son's forehead resting against the glass. I was worried about him falling asleep too early and being a right royal pain in the arse at stupid o'clock the following morning. So I instigated a game of I Spy. He did join in, begrudgingly. He was 4 years old at the time and so hampered by a limited vocabulary and some pretty ropey spelling skills. But he eventually managed to win. Your turn, sunshine. Ah. Do it properly. Arms folded, he sat up and through pursed lips spat the words. I spy with my little eye something beginning with ah. His brother, grandmother and I began guessing, but he really had us. Eventually, we requested some clues. It begins with ah. Yes, okay, but is it in the car or outside? In. Is it in the front of the car or the back? The front. He made eye contact with me in the rear view mirror and continued sternly. It should be in the back as well, but it's not. Try as we might, we couldn't get it. Meanwhile, despite my employing such tactics as winding all the windows down and turning the radio up full blast, both my sons had begun to nod off. Do you give in? Number 2 son mumbled from his slump position as he fought an increasingly helpless battle with slumber. Yes, what was it? In the mirror I saw satisfaction spread across his sleepy face as I conceded defeat. Nothing cheers a kid up like beating his old man. I could have kicked myself. Not for not getting the answer, but for not thinking of it myself when I was a little lad. The answer that meant I never again made my kids sit through that bloody rigmarole. The one thing that makes any period worth not escaping. The thing that should have been in the back but wasn't. Happiness. If something doesn't make anybody happy, What's the bloody point?
The coop. It's not just for chickens.